was deteriorating sharply, resulting in serious human rights violations and abuses. After seizing Goma, the capital of North Kivu, M23 fighters and Rwandan soldiers advanced to the neighboring province of South Kivu, entering the outskirts of its capital Bukavu before seizing it on Sunday. We start with the latest from the DR Congo.
Unlike in Goma, the takeover of Bukavu was different. Vendors were seen selling fruits, there was traffic on the streets, and people were walking about. A day after M23 fighters allied with Rwandan troops entered the center of Bukavu, another key city in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. This is what the residents say of the rebels' entry.
The M23 troops who entered do not bother anyone. You can pass them and they will not stop you or ask for any identity.
But on the initial day of the takeover and fall of Bukavu, it was a different story. Chaotic scenes unfolded. There were reports of sporadic gunfire and widespread looting in the city, including at a wild food program depot, with residents sheltering in their homes. It follows conflicting reports about whether the Rwandan-backed rebels had entered the key city of Bukavu after advances in that region. The United Nations and the European Union have voiced alarm over the worsening conflict. When the rebels left Goma, they had to make sure it had a mark. The body of Delphine Katembo Vinywasiki, better known as Delcat Idengo, was found in a street with his head partially covered with blood. Unconfirmed reports say the artist was shot. Idengo, who was a critic of all sides in the conflict, was among hundreds of inmates who escaped from a prison in Goma after the militants seized the city last month. The Congolese government has acknowledged its fall and urged residents to stay at home to avoid being targeted by the occupying forces. The United Nations and European countries have warned that the latest offensive, which has seen hundreds of thousands of people forced from their homes, could spark a wider regional conflict. The M23 captured Bukavu's main airport, which is about 30 kilometers north of the city, and then began advancing slowly towards the city, which is the capital of South Kivu province. The United Nations World Food Programme says a warehouse with nearly 7,000 tons of food was looted. The city of around 2 million people on the southern tip of Lake Kivu borders Rwanda and is an important transit point for the local mineral trade. Its fall represents an unprecedented expansion of territory for the M23 since their latest insurgency started in late 2021 and is a blow to the government of President Felix Tshisekedi.
We want the authorities who are now in the city to help us with our security. Here in Bukavu, we have a serious problem with these young children who have already taken up arms. They are shooting in the neighborhoods, preventing people from going to work. We ask the authorities in the city to take these children, not to kill them, but just to take away their weapons, so that every citizen can go about their daily activities as usual. If young people like me can hear me, I urge them to stop this looting. They must stop stealing other people's belongings to avoid harming others. My dear young people, if you are listening, let's put an end to this practice of looting other people's shops and businesses.
The Congolese government accuses Rwanda of sowing chaos in the region, as well as having troops on the ground so it can benefit from its natural resources, something Kigali denies. President Tshisekedi wants his Rwandan counterpart Paul Kagame to face sanctions over the latest unrest.
I think there's a change in narrative, and that's important. Today, we call the cat by its name. It's Rwandan troops that are on Congolese territory in the east of the country, and we've asked them to leave. It's our country, our territory that's under attack.
But President Kagame has dismissed such threats and has repeatedly pointed out that Rwanda's main priority is its security. He has long been angered by what he sees as the failure of the Congolese authorities to to deal with the Democratic Republic of Congo-based FRDR rebel group, which he sees as a danger to Rwanda. The group is made up of some members of the ethnic Hutu militia accused of involvement in the 1994 genocide in Rwanda, when over 100 days, around 800,000 people, mainly from the Tutsi ethnic group, were killed. He urged government forces hiding in houses to surrender and accused the withdrawing military of spreading terror by arming local youths who had gone on a looting rampage. The African Union, which held a Heads of State summit in Ethiopia, again urged the M23 to disarm. Africa Bureau, WION, World is One.
Ugandan opposition figure Kizza Besigye was briefly hospitalized after his health deteriorated following a hunger strike, but was back in prison. 68-year-old Besigye is a leading opponent of President Yoweri Museveni, in power for nearly 40 years, whom he has unsuccessfully challenged in 4 elections. Uganda's Supreme Court ruled last month that civilians should not be tried in military courts. This was rejected by Museveni, but the country's Interior Ministry said the government will drop the military trial. The confusion continues in Kampala.
Detained Ugandan opposition figure Kizza Besigye, on hunger strike for a week, was returned to prison after being in a health clinic overnight. The 68-year-old was rushed to a private medical facility in a prison ambulance as his health was deteriorating. Besigye was charged in a military court with illegal possession of a firearm, threatening national security, as well as treachery, which carries the death sentence. He denies the accusations. The news about his health came hours after a cabinet minister said he had visited Besigye in jail and urged him to resume eating while pledging to drop his military trial. Besigye's wife, Winifred Byanyima, had initially raised the alarm, saying that she was very worried over her husband's condition. Besigye is on trial on charges of threatening national security, which his wife Byanyima say are trumped up.
He's not been eating, he's only drinking water. He was last seen at court on Tuesday and he looked very frail and dehydrated. I'm very worried about his condition now.
He's indisposed, that is a matter of fact, since Friday. But also, as earlier communicated by the Honorable Winnie Byanyima, he had contemplated going on a hunger strike out of frustration and disgust with the impunity going on, because right now he's in illegal incarceration. He maintains the position that he's in a safe house. He's not on remand, because there is no remand warrant from any court. The proceedings before the General Court Martial were terminated by the Supreme Court.
President Yoweri Museveni said his government would continue to prosecute civilians in military courts despite the Supreme Court's ruling. Besigye, a long-time opponent of Museveni, was detained in neighboring Kenya in November in what a senior Kenyan foreign official described as an abduction. He was subsequently brought home and charged with illegal possession of firearms and with treachery, which carries the death penalty. However, in a first from the Ugandan authorities, it put out a statement that it would drop a military trial against opposition figurehead Kizza Besigye, urging him to give up his hunger strike in jail. The pledge was promptly rejected as suspicious by Besigye's wife, UNAIDS Executive Director Winnie.
It's all a total disregard of the law of Uganda, the constitution, and if this happens to him, that he continues to be held illegally, that some trumped up process is used to convict him, this is not just about him, it's about the fate of democracy and the rights of Ugandans. We will prevail. One way or other, we will prevail. The truth is on our side. we are going to prevail, but I can't say I'm hopeful, I can't say I'm pessimistic, but it's what it is. We must struggle.
The army, which has not yet commented on the announcement, had previously dismissed the Supreme Court's ruling and insisted the military trial would go ahead. Besigye is a leading opponent of the country's President Yoweri Museveni, in power for nearly 40 years. Besigye was Museveni's personal doctor during the 1980s Bush War, but the two men later fell out. Besigye ran against and lost to Museveni in 4 presidential elections. He rejected the results of all those votes, citing irregularities that the authorities denied. African Bureau, WION World is One.
Few heads of diplomacy can boast the longevity of Mahmoud Ali Yusuf, Djibouti's foreign minister since 2005, who was elected to head the African Union's Executive Commission. Yusuf won the required support of 2/3 of the region's leaders in the Ethiopian capital, Addis Ababa, to secure the post, representing some 1.5 billion Africans across the continent. The 59-year-old was deemed an outside shot against veteran Kenyan politician Raila Odinga, but observers praised the career, the diplomat's low-key campaign to succeed Chadian Moussa Faki Mahamat, and head the Pan-African bloc. Here's a report.
The 38th Ordinary Session of the African Union Assembly of the Heads of State and Government opened at the AU headquarters in Addis Ababa, the capital of Ethiopia. The 2-day summit, bringing together leaders from AU member states, was held under the 2025 AU theme, Justice for Africans and People of African Descent Through Reparations. Beyond the theme, discussions will cover key continental issues including regional peace and security, economic development, AU institutional reforms, and Africa's growing role on the global stage. A key agenda item at the summit is the election of senior leadership positions within the AU Commission, including the chairperson, deputy chairperson, and 6 commissioners. The year 2024 was a busy year for the Union. 3 candidates, Mahmoud Ali Yusuf of Djibouti, Raila Odinga, a former Prime Minister of Kenya, and Richard Randriamandrato, an ex-Foreign Minister of Madagascar, were all involved in intense lobbying and campaigning for the position of Commission Chair to replace Moussa Faki Mahamat. The AU has 55 member states. Presidents or heads of government pick the Commission's leader, who is effectively the chief executive of the Addis Ababa-based secretariat running the AU. In the end, Mahmoud Ali Yusuf defeated Raila Odinga and Richard Randriamandrato in a vote at the AU summit in Addis Ababa, the Ethiopian capital. Yusuf, who will serve a 4-year term, replaces Moussa Faki of Chad, who has held the post since 2017. The result is a blow for the high-profile Odinga, who sought support among allies at home and abroad. The 80-year-old Odinga has sought Kenya's presidency 5 times over 3 decades, and the AU post would have been his last foray in public affairs. His long and colourful career in local politics peaked with his rise to the position of Prime Minister in 2008 after tense negotiations to end post-election violence in which at least 1,000 people were killed in Kenya. Odinga remains a beloved figure in Kenya, but some saw his recent political alliance with William Ruto, the current president of the country, as a betrayal of a decades-long fight for good governance in the East African country. As head of the AU Commission, Yusuf inherits challenges ranging from the rise of military juntas in West Africa to a violent rebellion in eastern Congo, where rebels backed by Rwanda have taken 2 major cities in recent days. Yusuf has been Djibouti's Foreign Affairs Minister since 2005. The AU is frequently criticized for perceived inaction or lack of serious response to armed conflicts in different parts of Africa. Africa Bureau, WION World is One.
Mali's cultural festival took on political weight amid regional shake-up, especially after the North African country joined Niger and Burkina Faso, exiting the West African bloc ECOWAS, and formed their own alliance. People are now speaking about unification. Here's a report.
Listeners swayed as musicians performed on a stage on the banks of the Niger River at an annual festival colored this year by political shifts roiling West Africa. Tens of thousands of people from Mali and elsewhere in the region flock each February to the town of Segou, 230 kilometers northeast of the capital Bamako, for a week-long showcase of Malian music, visual art, theatre and dance. But this year's edition of the festival Sur le Niger took place against the backdrop of Mali's exit, along with Burkina Faso and Niger, from the West African bloc ECOWAS, and uncertainty about when the military junta would make good on its vow to organize elections.
The theme of the festival was cultural diversity, peace, and unity. You are aware of the current context of our country. For over a decade, we have been facing a crisis. Our department, in its overall vision, works across all regions to promote diversity, social cohesion, and coexistence.
Days before the festival kicked off in early February, Mali, Niger and Burkina Faso formally left ECOWAS, an economic and political grouping which had been urging the three junta-led countries to return to democratic rule. They have announced a new confederation known as the Alliance of Sahel States, and authorities dubbed this year's festival the Week of AES Fraternity. Portraits of the three junta leaders were splashed on posters throughout the grounds, a jarring, militaristic note amid the arts and craft stands.
The general idea behind this exhibition is reconciliation. I was inspired by repaired calabashes as the traces of culture fascinated me. I observed that joining two cracked parts of a calabash or stitching together several fragments symbolizes gathering and unity, which directly relates to reconciliation. Today in Africa, we dream of understanding, peace and reconciliation.
Segou is more than just a festival. It is a laboratory that experiments with the place and role of culture in development. The development of the city of Segou and its surrounding areas, but also the development of Mali as a whole.
The festival's impact extends beyond cultural expression. For many attendees like Mahalmadan Khalifa Touré, wearing an AES shirt, the festival represents a unifying force. Africa Bureau, WION World is One.
The president of Cameroon, Paul Biya, the world's oldest head of state, turned 92 years old after more than 4 decades in power, but remains tight-lipped on whether he will run for another term in elections this year. Many people, including the deeply divided opposition, are in little doubt that the leader who first won election in 1982 will stand for an 8th term in the October vote. Here's a report.
I know that beyond being a fine tradition, February 13th has become a special day, when you have the opportunity to shout out to the world the deep love you have for the one you affectionately call your darling, your champion, our president, Paul Biya.
Our motivation is due to the fact that the man we have celebrated today, or are celebrating today, is a man of peace. He is a level-headed, temperate man with a structural vision for Cameroon.
A shortage of available gym space has led a group of seniors in Zimbabwe's capital to set up a high-energy fitness club in a graveyard. They say dancing amid gravestones is a salutary reminder of how a lack of exercise can shorten their lives and is contributing to the rise of cases of chronic diseases in Zimbabwe. Here's a report from Harare.
It's not often you hear or see a cardio workout here in Harare's city cemetery. But for the Commandos Fitness Club, it's a perfect spot to keep old age diseases at bay. Surrounded by rows of graves, 65-year-old Nelly Mundandwa and fellow members launch into an hour-long session of squats, lunges and stretches to upbeat sounds. For Mundandwa, the daily routine is more than exercise. It's her lifeline in managing diabetes.
We are here for our daily exercises routine. The people lying here are resting, but the way I see it, some of them were laid to rest before their time. Some died because of diseases like diabetes due to lack of exercises. They lived a life of just eating and not exercising, and most of them died early. I just don't want to join them yet. That means I have to do the hard work here.
With limited fitness facilities, such as gyms in their neighborhoods, older Zimbabweans are exercising wherever they can. They aim to combat Africa's growing problem of chronic diseases like heart problems, high blood pressure and diabetes. Other groups exercise along highways or disused railway lines.
The motivation that we have to train and exercise with these elderly women comes from my own personal experience. My mother was diagnosed with high blood pressure and sugar diabetes, which led her to suffer a stroke, leading to her death on the 5th of January 2023. It pained me so much that I decided together with my colleague here to recruit elderly women to exercise and help them keep fit, because these diseases like sugar diabetes and high blood pressure are on the increase.
Globally, non-communicable diseases are a leading cause of death according to figures from the World Health Organization last December 2024. It's responsible for 41 million deaths, with 74% of annual fatalities. The Commandos crew are doing their best to fight their way to fitness under the guidance of Coach Joseph Nekati. Africa Bureau, WION World is One.
Thank you for watching this week's episode of Wild of Africa. Tell us what you think about the show and tell us your story. Reach out to us on all our social media platforms, and I'll see you on the next show. I'm Eric Njoka. Goodbye for now.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
WION Health Resort is unique, the only one of its kind. Experience the 4 paths of natural wellness: yoga, Ayurveda, acupuncture, and naturopathy. Each uniquely customized program improves the whole person to make every person whole. Come to WION Health Resort. Make your reservation at wion.com.
Know more, understand better, think ahead. Hello and a very warm welcome. You are watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Get the facts, not the bombast. On the 26th of March, dynamic pricing, Baloch separatists, Gravitas cuts out the clutter. Gravitas keeps calm when others scream. Gravitas brings news to life. Weekdays, 9 p.m. IST, 3:30 p.m. GMT. Gravitas. Seeing is believing.
Ready to dive into your daily dose of news?
Bringing you what's trending in the West and all that's setting trends in the East.
And all of this served up with a side of insightful banter.
We don't just bring you the latest stories.
We bring you your talking points for the day.
And while you do that, from the busy streets of New York, I will provide you with deeper insights on the developments through the course of the day in the U.S.
The show that keeps you ahead of the global curve. A conversation you'd want to be a part of. A place where news becomes an engaging exchange.
We bring you stories that impact your present.
This is World DNA. Join the conversation.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
Ready to dive into your daily dose of news?
Bringing you what's trending in the West and all that's setting trends in the East.
And all of this served up with a side of insightful banter.
We don't just bring you the latest stories.
We bring you your talking points for the day.
And while you do that, from the busy streets of New York, I will provide you with deeper insights on the developments through the course of the day in the U.S.
The show that keeps you ahead of the global curve. A conversation you'd want to be a part of. A place where news becomes an engaging exchange.
We bring you stories that impact your present.
This is World DNA. Join the conversation.